They vanished without a trace, the entire town seemingly wiped from the face of the earth overnight. This is the mysterious Lost Colony of Roanoke, America's first unsolved mystery that has captivated the nation for nearly 500 years. What if I told you there was evidence that the colonists didn't just disappear but were taken by one of the local Native American tribes who welcomed them as one of their own? Did they really vanish, or are they hiding in plain sight, living among the very people we think took them? Hi everyone! Today we are going to travel back in time to colonial North America to uncover what really happened to the lost colonists of Roanoke. Make sure to watch until the end because we have some new information that may shed some light on the fate of these poor souls. The year is 1587. England, as Queen Elizabeth I is at the height of her power, and across the ocean in the New World, the first English colony is struggling to survive. The settlers are starving, and desperate times call for desperate measures. When English explorer Sir Francis Drake arrived at the settlement of Roanoke in 1586, he found only 12 men fit for labour, the rest too weak to work due to a lack of food. To make matters worse, the colony had been raided and all of their food stores stolen, leaving the starving settlers with nothing to eat but what they could forage for themselves. In desperation, the governor, John White, sent an appeal for help to the nearby CROATOAN tribe for food. The chief of the CROATOAN, speaking through an interpreter, answered that he would help them, and that they should live with his people until such time as ships could arrive from England with more supplies. Now, some historians suggest that when White returned to England for more supplies, he agreed to turn over any English children born in the colony to the Native Americans to be raised as their own. However, this claim is hotly debated, with many historians arguing there is little evidence to support it. It is true that one child, a young girl named Virginia Dare, was born in the colony before the settlers left for England. And it's also true that when the settlers returned to Roanoke 3 years later, they found no sign of the colonists or any of the Native Americans who had helped them. However, there is no evidence that a formal agreement was ever made to turn the English children over to the natives. In the end, the colonists either chose to integrate with the local tribes out of necessity or were taken against their will. Either way, the end result was the same. They vanished into thin air. When John White finally returned to the coast of North Carolina in 1590, he found the colony abandoned. The houses were destroyed, the crops trampled, and the settlement was eerily silent. All that remained of the 115 colonists were the letters CRO carved into a post and the word CROATOAN carved into a tree. Despite an extensive search, no trace of the colonists could be found. Where had they gone? Were they dead or alive? Had they been taken by hostile natives, or had they simply run away? In the centuries since, countless theories have sprung up to try to explain what happened to the lost colony of Roanoke. Some believe that the colonists were killed and eaten by the very tribes who had befriended them. Others believe that they were taken by supernatural forces and that the colony was cursed. Still, others believe that the colonists simply integrated with the native population and lived out their lives in the New World. But the truth may lie somewhere in between. A recent archaeological dig at the site of the lost colony has uncovered new clues that may shed some light on what happened to the missing colonists. Food shortages likely played a major role in the fate of the lost colony. When John White sailed back to England in 1587, he left behind a group of about 120 colonists, including his daughter, son-in-law and young granddaughter, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in North America. He also left behind a store of food that was supposed to last them for several months, but the food supplies dwindled faster than expected, forcing the colonists to rely on hunting and fishing. As the food situation grew more dire, the colonists began to panic. Some historians believe that they turned to cannibalism as a last resort, eating the bodies of the dead. This gruesome theory is supported by the discovery of human bones that were found at the site of the lost colony. However, the bones cannot be definitively linked to the colonists, and other explanations for their presence have not been ruled out. Archaeologists recently unearthed a cache of 16th century English pottery, suggesting that the colonists may have been living on site until 1590, when English explorer John White returned to find the settlement abandoned. According to Rebecca Yameen, the lead archaeologist with the First Colony Foundation, the new findings challenge the notion that the colonists suddenly packed up and moved away. Instead, the archaeological evidence suggests that the colonists were living at the site until their death, with food shortages likely playing a major role. If the colonists were starving, it's possible that some of them resorted to cannibalism. The discovery of a human skull with a depressed fracture on the top of the head suggests that at least one colonist was killed violently. Archaeologists don't know if the person was male or female, adult or child. but the severity of the injury suggests that it was inflicted during a fight over dwindling food resources. According to University of South Florida anthropologist David Carr, who is consulting with the First Colony Foundation, the violent death may have occurred during a fight between two groups of colonists vying for control of the settlement. If the more powerful group eventually resorted to cannibalism, it could explain why the remains of the lost colony have never been found. For centuries, the mystery of the lost colony of Roanoke has captured the imaginations of people around the world. With only the letters CROATOAN carved into a tree to provide us with some clue as to their whereabouts, it's easy to see why so many theories have sprung up over the years. One of the most popular theories is that the colonists were killed and eaten by the very natives who had befriended them. After all, the colonists were starving and desperate when they arrived in North Carolina, and it's not hard to imagine that the natives may have seen them as a threat. However, there's no evidence to support this theory, and it's likely that the colonists would have fought back if the natives had attacked them. Another popular theory is that the colonists were taken by supernatural forces. This theory is based on the fact that when the settlers returned to Roanoke 3 years later, they found no sign of the colonists or the native population. Some believe that the colonists were simply wiped out by disease, but there's no evidence to support this theory either. However, the discovery of a human skull with a depressed fracture on the top of the head lends credence to the theory that at least some of the colonists died violently. If the colonists were starving and desperate, it's possible that some of them resorted to cannibalism. After all, human beings are capable of some truly horrific things when pushed to the brink. And if the colonists were fighting amongst themselves over dwindling food supplies, it's possible that someone could have been killed and then eaten by the other colonists. This could explain why the remains of the lost colony have never been found. The colonists may have taken steps to hide the evidence of their crimes. And finally, there is the theory that the colonists simply integrated with the native population and lived out their lives in the New World. This theory is based on the fact that the colonists were starving when they arrived in North Carolina, and it is not hard to imagine that they would have jumped at the chance to live with a tribe that was willing to help them. However, there is no evidence to support this theory, and it is likely that the colonists would have been killed or captured if they had tried to integrate with the natives. So what really happened to the lost colony of Roanoke? The truth may never be known, but the evidence suggests that the colonists likely died at the site of the settlement, perhaps from a combination of starvation, disease, and violence. Whatever happened, it's clear that the lost colony is one of America's most fascinating mysteries. We hope you enjoyed learning more about the lost colony of Roanoke. Be sure to let us know your thoughts on what happened to the lost colony in the comments below. We also have a lot of other videos about ancient civilizations that you might enjoy, such as the mysterious origins of the Great Pyramid of Giza or the shocking discovery of a Roman chariot in England. Thanks for watching.